I will not go 10,000 miles from here to help murder and kill another poor people simply to continue the domination of white slave masters over the darker people of the earth.
Your freedom. Well, now, well, see, you make yourself look crazy talking about I shouldn't go.
I work for the government, for part of the government.
Well, I wait for God.
For my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight?
We have been brainwashed. Everything good and of authority was made white. We look at Jesus, we see a white with blonde hair and blue eyes. We look at all the angels, we see white with blonde hair and blue eyes. Now I'm sure if there's a heaven in the sky and the color folks die and go to heaven, where are the colored angels? They must be in the kitchen preparing the milk and honey. Even cars from the king of the jungle in back Africa. Such things as movies, commercials, advertisements, endorsements, and even the heavyweight championship of the world. This is all there for me if I will only give up my belief, if I will only deny the honorable Elijah Muhammad and the truth that God has given to me. Why should me and other so-called Negroes go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us? We believe in obeying the laws of the land. We are taught to obey the laws of the land as long as it don't conflict with our religious beliefs. Whatever the punishment, whatever the persecution is for standing up for my religious beliefs, even if it means facing machine gun fire that day, I will face it before denouncing Elijah Muhammad and the religion of Islam. I'm ready to die.
Muhammad Ali has just said, we are all victims of the same system of oppression, and even though we may have different religious beliefs, this does not at all bring about a difference in terms of our concern.
One more time, who's the champ of the world?
The reason I played that is that my best friend died June 1st, Leroy Baylor, and Leroy was a Muslim and I was a Christian. But at that time, Leroy was a Catholic, all right? So Muhammad Ali was 10 months younger than the two of us. Back in those days, he was a lead representative of what was right. In those days, you had people being drafted and being sent to Vietnam. And the majority of them were black, of course. So he, as being heavyweight champion of the world, all right, our champion, our hero, chose not to go. And that was a disgrace back in those days, not want to go fight for your country. So we thought. But he gave the reasons why he didn't want to go. And, well, I played all that to show you all the progress we made from those sort of defenses. Well, what you say, all you youngsters that really didn't experience all this. Now, if Leroy was here, he'd have a lot to say.
From Muhammad Ali to Kamala, we have a long struggle that we've had to go through and plenty of detractors. You have no shortage walking out any of these streets and finding people who would badmouth the vice president, soon to be president of the United States. And sometimes they fervently believe the crap that they've been told. Sometimes they're working at the behest of other people. But to find a group of people who value, who treasure our history as well as who we are now, that's still a bit of a struggle. You know, it's to find brothers who will sit together in peace and in praise of the heritage that brought us here. That's a rare thing, painfully still in 2024, as it was back in '62 with the time of Muhammad Ali.
We have JT and Graham on Zoom. Gentlemen? JT, JT, what did you think of that? Muhammad Ali.
Believe
fighting the draft. He's a youngster. JT,
believe
you're
it or
the
not,
youngest among us.
Muhammad I've been here about 35 years now. But Muhammad Ali was one of my childhood heroes. I hope you guys can hear me. I know it's a little probably slow on my end, but Muhammad Ali was one of my heroes.
Yeah.
And then now, as I grow up in my profession, one of the people I follow after is Gordon Parks, and he had a time period where he followed Muhammad Ali as well. So it was interesting to kind of see. I was really looking for him to see in the crowd to see if I saw him. But as we progress forward, yeah, it is really monumental from hearing his take from back then to now on the status and on the some of the ways we have come up. So I'm always interested to look back and see where we've been and where we are now.
All right. Grant?
And I love that video. I remember when Cassius Clay
Yeah.
in the 1960 Olympics, before he changed his name. But we all followed Cassius Clay,
Yeah.
and we followed Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm.
We were all proud of him. No matter who you were, everybody loved his style, his poetry, his predictions. And I don't remember the date of that video, but I do remember when I was in the ROTC program at City College in the 60s. My best friend wrote me from Nam and told me what was going on. He said, we're doing the same thing to the Vietnamese that the Nazis were doing to the Jews.
Right.
And I had already signed my contract with the Army, and at City College, we were trained in counterinsurgency and guerrilla warfare tactics. And my lieutenant colonel was Earl D. Woods from the 1st Special Forces Division. And he was in Indochina when John Kennedy told us we had no troops in Indochina. And I remember my first class, Lieutenant Colonel Earl D. Woods said, gentlemen, we teach the people what to think because they don't think. So when I got that letter from Jimmy real quick, I took it in with me the next day. All of the cadre officers at City College were former Green Beret. And I sat down with my lieutenant colonel, who was a brother from Kansas who dealt with the Klan growing up. And I told him, I'm not doing this under no circumstances. He said, well, we got to go before the colonel. I said, no problem. My decision is made. And the full colonel was white, he was black. And we had a meeting, and he said, well, you know, you signed a contract. I said, as a history major, I remember your government signed 350, quote unquote, contracts or treaties
with the Indians.
with the people that own this land we're sitting on. And the United States government is still in possession of stolen property. I said, so when you can show me a contract that you have with any one of those nations, whether it's the Choctaw, the Blackfoot, the Iroquois, the Apache, whichever, where you kept your word on your contract, then you come back and talk to me about my word on your contract. As of this date, I'm no longer in the Corps, nor will I serve under any circumstances. And they switched me out and gave me a 1A draft status, and I never got called. I never got called. And I salute Muhammad Ali for his conviction.
He lost
his
title.
To understand that what God says not to do overrides any government in terms of what they say they want you to do.
Well, you know, well, they didn't treat him that nice. They took his title away, and he sacrificed a little bit to take that stand.
He got it back. Let's remember that.
He got the title back.
After how many years?
Right, the years in the prime.
5 years.
He had to lay low for quite a few years. But that was quite a stance that he took during those days.
And he came back a bigger man for
and
it.
he had the title of heavyweight, so that's what was so outstanding about that. Well, let's update ourselves, and I want to go, I don't know why we spend so much time on that.
Well, from the
I
heroes of
really
then,
wanted to talk about.
He's one of the GOATs, as we call them.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we call him the GOAT, which is an acronym for greatest of all time, is not necessarily for all he did in the ring, but for what he did outside of the ring and the positions that he took. So since we're talking about heroes today and great people, it's only fitting that we spend that much time on Ali.
Okay. So I was right.
It definitely is pertinent, particularly to the young folk who may not know who Cassius Clay was, may not know who Muhammad Ali became. That's a very pertinent lesson that we are obligated to teach our children, because they ain't teaching that in the schools. We have that obligation.
All right, let's go to Leroy. This is Leroy's last show. We were talking about George Floyd. And here's his take on what we were talking about. JT was on the show that day, so you'll remember this.
Wow.
It's a little profound. Vietnam. But Nam just attracts all this energy. Because I think it's, Reverend Sharpton, I told you, now he went through his struggle. He's doing what his calling is. It's a calling from God. What we're doing here, where we're showing what real people are about. And it touches you in the heart, and you have to know that you got to have God and love in your heart to survive, especially being black. This isn't limited to white, limited to being black. It's being human, which you've been going over a couple of shows ago. Leroy, what do you think? Let's hear from an older person.
An OG.
The OG speaker. He's older than me.
Hey,
a few days.
And that's older than dirt. By 2 days.
There are numerous ways of looking at what happened to the brother. How it happened. And I began living, as you, during the time of Emmett Till. Emmett Till was a galvanizing, a uniting force that we didn't realize was a uniting force. Because we just didn't know at that time. We saw an image of an individual in Jet magazine and what they had done to him, and it made an imprint on our minds. It was like a time bomb, a uniting time bomb. And that's what's happening with
George.
The brother here. And they know it, the system knows it. And they are doing things to minimize the mobilization of black people, which they've done continually. So that's one way. It's an Emmett Till moment. There's something that's not going to be forgotten by the youngest who have seen it, and also in the other communities when we saw the large turnouts of people from all walks of life. Primarily, when I say primarily, the thing that caught our attention was the number of Caucasians and their families who came out. And they haven't forgotten that moment. And there are many, many implications. There are numerous studies that are being done. You hear these studies says this, study says that, but they don't give you the studies, they don't tell you about the studies that really penetrate into the minds and hearts of the whole population. So I put that on the side. The other thing is that the brother was tall. He's an ordinary guy, man. He ain't interested in moving your neighborhood. He ain't, he's just a good brother. And what happened to him was the system being played out. And the system has, as its soldiers and generals, individuals just like the one that knelt on that brother's neck. And when you look at it, for me, what he did is no different than what is happening in the area of world called Palestine.
Oh, God.
The dropping of bombs and napalm, oh, it was a mistake. Oh, sweat, I didn't mean to pick your pocket. And they picked the pocket of the government. So, to wrap it up, the coldness that you saw in the guy who knelt on Brother Floyd's neck, the coldness is the same coldness that you see in what is called Palestine. The drop after you kill 10,000 people, man.
Close to the 40,000.
I know. I said after you kill 10,000, they don't have no tanks. They don't have no airplane. They don't have no submarines. They don't have no intelligence that picks up everything that goes on in the home. They don't have, and you enjoying yourself.
We're the Hamas soldiers.
Yeah.
Have you seen one gun?
And that's
have
another
we seen
thing.
One gun in Palestine?
Let me just say this.
Israelis?
Let me just say this, because they want to make our rejection of what's happening over there as being friendly, co-conspirators of Hamas. We didn't even know anything about Hamas before this thing took place. What we mobilized on in the black community, mobilized in terms of thinking and how we view this, is the genocide of a people right before your eyes. But the enemy, what the enemy does is called semantic tyranny. They insert words in there that neutralize what you are saying or neutralize your actions. And therefore they portray the demonstrations as pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, when it really is anti-genocide. That's why the people, you see we got babies in our community, so we're constantly reminded. Every time you see a little boy, a little girl running through the street on the sidewalk, it brings up an image of what happens, not a conscious image, but it brings up an image of what's happening over there in Gaza. So the brother Floyd, he lives through his children, he lives through his family, he lives. And within that family is so many giants achievements are going to come forth, from the youngest to the oldest, in my feeling.
Well, what we're doing is we're reviewing 400 years of genocide has happened. Now you have to realize that was May 29th, the last show I did here at the Firehouse. And Leroy died 3 days after that, June 1st. And watching this, the first time I watched it, it hit me dead in the heart, you know. That's the last time you're going to see Leroy here. And even today, it still bothers me. It hits you right in the heart. JT, you were there that day, you know? The way he talks about George Floyd and his rendition of the way, you know, he presented himself. Seeing it now, it is even more powerful. I don't know. How does that hit you?
I think we got to do a better job of honoring our historians and our legends.
Amen.
While we have them. Leroy was one of those people that knew so much about a lot of different things. I don't think we took advantage of much of what he known. And even as me, as the youngest person on the panel, even me, I could have taken more advantage of him. I could have taken more advantage of being a part of the kind of dive into that knowledge that he had and he was offering to give to us. And I think the ones that we do have left, like Reverend Sharpton and you brothers and Mr. G, I am honored to be a part, to just sit at the feet of those that not only laid the groundwork for us, but have the knowledge and the history from being there, not just hearing it from books and things like that. So I'm sincerely honored to be a part again, but I'm also regretful that I wasn't able to really dive into his story and identify with him, his help and contribution to the story that we tell today.
Graham?
That video is very touching. You know, Dr. Jeffries talks about thinking analytically and critically, and that's what Brother Leroy did. Looking at George Floyd and comparing it to the situation in Palestine. Watching a man kill another man with abject contempt for another human life, and comparing that to the murders of so many people in Gaza. How do you equate the excessive force in the taking of a life? And there is a word speak that Europeans use all the time, or a double speak. And if you don't understand their language, you'll get caught. The false justifications. I mean, Leroy went to it. He would call me sometimes, black man, black man. And we would talk on the phone, you know, and he had questions, and I had questions, and he gave me answers, and I gave him answers. But Winston, when you called me and told me that Leroy was dead,
30 minutes?
That was, I had just celebrated my birthday. And brother's gone, to be seen no more. And I thought about when he called to tell me that Minister Hafiz had passed during COVID. That cut real deep. And the name of his show, Books That Matter.
Yeah.
We live in a country in an age where people are trying to prevent people from reading, from learning their history. The motive by these white people to prevent black people from knowing the truth about the country, knowing the truth about what is and what is not. Even this guy who denies knowing anything about 2025, as though it doesn't exist and as though he had nothing to do with it. The Heritage Foundation and all the people working in conjunction with it. You know, my mother always said, you have nothing to do, go read a book. And that's what we did growing up. There was no cable television and all these stupid distractions, Facebook and X or whatever they call that stupidness. We read books. I guess that's why history was my major. I didn't even read Charles Dickens. I wanted to know the truth about what was going on. I could care less about Tom Sawyer and the mythological stuff. But I thank God for my mother and her phrase, and that's what we called her, go read a book. You know, but what you put in your head, no man can take from you. No system, no ism can take from you when you know the truth. And so many people walking around in the dark because they don't want to read, they don't want to study, and they become victims as a result.
All that's going to change.
I miss you.
All that's going to change with a new president. But also I want to go through what happened at Nan right after Leroy died. We had my next best friend, Michael Hardy, that I've been knowing for something like 30 years. The founder of the National Action Network. JT, well, you might introduce what I'm about to play is that the video you made up on his memorial. I have that here on the roll-in. So you want to talk about it before we start it?
Michael Hardy was the epitome of an icon, a legend, a man of power, a man of few words, but knew how to articulate exactly what he needed, exactly what he wanted. And he left an extremely impression on me. The sad part about this story is that I didn't get close to him until the latter few years of his life. And again, I just have to mention that I think we really have to take into account who we have and what we have among us and treat it accordingly and dive into how much you can learn from these vessels that God has given us. But to segue into the video, this was the best way I can pay homage to him, even with him not being with us. Some of these images you're going to see in this slideshow was some of the images that he requested. Maybe 3 or 4 months before he passed, he reached out to me and said, "Did I have any images of him?" And I said, "Of course." And I as a photographer, I created a whole folder designated just to him. And a lot of these images we was going to get printed for him, for his home and for his office, not knowing I'll be capturing these images to capture this moment. So this is a slideshow that we did. Please forgive all the imperfections. One of the hardest things doing this was Rev and the family asked me to do this, but I couldn't do it, to be honest, until the day before the funeral because I know what emotional take it would put on me. So I scrambled up in the last 6 hours before the funeral, and this is what we was able to create.
All right, run the video, Hardy. I only have half of it, only 4 minutes, 4.5.
Gotcha.
JT, that's absolutely fantastic, man. There's much more to that. But that was through, that was a memorial at First Corinthian Baptist Church. We must have had, I don't know how many people in there. What do you say? That was difficult to do, huh?
Yeah. I think anytime honoring legends is always hard. I can talk about legal night. I can tell you some of the battles he fought, but I got a quick story I gotta share with you. 2 days before he passed, me and Ashley Sharpton, which is like one of my best friends, we went to visit him at the hospital. And he couldn't really utter, he couldn't really speak. But one of the last things he did, we was gesturing and joking and trying to lift his spirits and having a good time, and we just talking about certain things, but he couldn't really articulate what he wanted, or articulate in conversation. So right before we left, we prayed and all those things. He wrote a note to Ashley, and on the note, he wrote something, we couldn't make it out, and it said Neely, and we couldn't understand what it is for a minute, and he wrote it out again, and then when he wrote it out the last time, we got it. He was talking about Jordan Neely, which if you remember, Jordan Neely was the young man that was the Michael Jackson impersonator that got killed on the subway train.
Okay.
Attorney Hardy, on his deathbed, wrote out Jordan Neely to me and Ashley to remind us of the Jordan Neely case that was coming up. And that's the type of man that he was. And I leave you with that, knowing he's the founder of NAN, he was our general counsel, but this man lived and breathed what he believed was right.
That's right.
And no matter what was going on with his body, in that particular moment, his mind still was on the justice for Jordan Neely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael was what I call a kind spirit. Humble and kind-hearted. And I got the biggest kick out of, we shared keeping our wives happy. So, and Bev, anytime I say to Michael, happy wife, happy life, we both smile. And I always get a grin out of him. And legal night, I thought was one of the most, it was the most helpful to the people. To watch those, 14, 15 years of legal night, I was there from day one, and to see people come in with problems. You know how many problems black people have, but NAN is a mecca for, if you got a problem, where do you go? You're black in Harlem, or anywhere if you're black. You come to National Action Network. That's your home, that's church. We're here to help people. And Michael was the greatest lawyer in the world. I mean, lawyers some lawyers give lawyers a bad name, but Michael was a kind spirit, that angelical type of energy. He was that way with everybody. Everybody loved Michael, man. If you had a problem, you went to Michael. I know every time I had a problem, I went to Michael. And Michael got mad at me once. I felt so hurt. I got really hurt and almost cried. Michael was annoyed at me. I said, "What'd I do, Michael?" Oh, wow. And that was only once. And that I remember how it affected me. So all these kind spirits, and that was my show was about today. Two of my best friends I lost within 2 months of each other, Leroy and Michael Hardy, and I was looking for the third. And then when I got sick, I said, wait a minute. And I don't know what it is, empathy. You take in too much empathy and you absorb it, and it can really make you sick. I mean, grieving, and really, especially when nice people die. Yeah. You start blaming God. I know I did for a minute, but he paid his We know he's above, watching over us, protecting us now. Guardian angel, Michael Harding.
He was an example in so many ways, not the least of which is that often enough you will see Michael step back from the microphone, let other people get the glory, let them get the quotes on TV. He will step back. But where he was going when he stepped back was to the law library. Where he was going was to the experts, so that and eventually one of his cases ended up in the Supreme Court with Reverend Sharpton. But he would step back so that he can do the work that's necessary. He was not a person who sought his own glorification. And he gave up probably millions of dollars in income by working for the National Action Network, starting in the late 80s all the way up to his death.
35
because
years.
It could have been, these smart abilities that he had could have been used to enrich himself, but he didn't. He made a choice, and he did work that was worth millions of dollars. He would do it for our people and for our community. And that's something I think he ought to have a law school named after him at the very least. Our children need to learn who he was and why he did what he did.
So, that sort of ties back into Brother Leroy, because when Brother Leroy and I did the Communicators radio show, that's one of the things. We used to open a lineup, and people would just call in to Brother Leroy, always with the questions to the communicators, whether it's to the guests, or if he didn't have the answer, he'd go seek out a guest who would have the answer. We talk about books that matter, people that matter, that show, but the Communicators, which he inherited from Brother Wayne Grice before then, was really a community vehicle for everybody who was listening on the airwaves. And, they would stop him later on, and he would also, use his religious basis to push the final call to other people. And he was, a community staple, everybody, like, oh, that's Brother Leroy, that's the guy from the Communicators, or
125th
that's the guy, 125th, right, with the final calls, getting with the paper. So both men, their calling was with the community. You know?
As with Dr. Ben, as with some of the other people, the giants who walked among us, because we cannot say that there's any shortage of geniuses, there's any shortage of people who are kind-hearted. We cannot say that. They are there, they are here, and our people need to acknowledge that, and our children need to learn that. That the brother who's selling the newspapers on the corner of Malcolm X Boulevard 125 might be nobody to you, but to other people, he's the one that opens the door for them to gain the knowledge or to gain the strength that they have. And this is the kind of thing that the person sitting next to you at Jimbo's 145th Street, you may not know more about them, but they are the ones who litigated the court case on behalf of Reverend Sharpton and others, so that there are geniuses and there are incredible giants who walk among us.
Well, I'm going to play one last roll, and I hope I have enough time. I don't have a clock running here, but what I'm mad about, Hardy's not here to see the first black woman president. I mean, 5 minutes?
9.
Oh, I have that, but I'm talking the time on it. Anyway, run number 3 with Kamala. I'm going to show you the beauty of the future. Kamala.
So some of you may have heard Donald Trump's running mate deliver remarks at the Republican National Convention. He talked about his life story about growing up in Southwest Ohio, and it was compelling. It's a compelling story. And it was not the full story. Frankly, what is very telling is what he did not talk about on that stage. He did not talk about Project 2025. Their 900-page blueprint for a second Trump term. He did not talk about it because their plans are extreme and they are divisive. In recent days, they've been trying to portray themselves as the party of unity. But here's the thing. If you claim to stand for unity, you need to do more than just use the word.
13 minutes. 18 minutes?
You cannot claim you stand for unity if you are pushing an agenda that deprives whole groups of Americans of basic freedoms, opportunity, and dignity.
Huh?
You cannot
17.
claim you stand for unity if you are intent on taking reproductive freedoms from the people of America and the women of America. Trying to ban abortion nationwide as they do and restrict access to IVF and contraception as their plan calls for. You cannot claim to be for unity if you try to overturn a free and fair election and threaten to terminate the United States Constitution. And you cannot claim to be for unity when your entire economic agenda is designed to prioritize billionaires and big corporations over the middle class. We're too busy watching what you're doing to hear what you're saying.
I think she's amazing. I see that as a blessing from God. I'm sorry. I told my wife a long time ago she was paranoid and crazy and ready to move to Canada. She said, I'm moving to Canada. I mean, this is a peaceful, quiet woman, God-fearing. And when Trump got shot at, she said, hey, why didn't they kill him? Excuse me, God. You know what I mean? That's how Trump had everybody so crazy. I said, no. I mean, she was one of these, you know, everybody was panicking. Just the thought of it drove me crazy. But I said, God wouldn't bring us.
After the assassination attempt?
No, I mean before all that, before even all that. Just that he had a possibility of getting in.
We can't believe that crazy man has so many followers. I mean, that's the thinking. How could somebody so crazy
74 million people
have so many
voted for him in
followers?
2020.
Yeah.
Now, Reverend Sharpton says that all the people that vote for Trump are not racist, but all racists vote for Donald Trump. And I said, well, that makes good sense. So out of this 74 that voted for him in 2020, how many of those people are still left out there? What, say he gets 40%, 46%?
And there's 1 million new voters coming age 18 every month. Those are some of the young ones. We hope that the young people have the sufficient perspective
But that's
to
happening
understand.
now, with Kamala coming in. Now, why did Kamala get in there? Because Joe Biden wasn't going to get reelected.
He was honest about his health issues.
No,
we never know what would have
on
happened technically.
He was on the wrong side, the Gaza problem. He was on the wrong side, too tight and hugging on Netanyahu.
But even
that
still,
made,
the position.
I was ready to turn on him myself when I saw him hanging on Netanyahu.
Yeah, but even still, the position in Gaza is still. There's still that problem there.
It's unresolved.
It's going to change.
They still
it's
look
going
at
to
the
change.
latest Michigan polls. It's very close. We're talking 1.7% margins, you know, because there's not been a clear distinction about what's going to change about what's happening in Gaza. Even under Kamala Harris is what she proposes. So things look good right now, but you never know until we know. That'll be November 5th.
And we see New York, which is heavily blue.
Right.
We see that in New York, but in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Alaska, these places.
Gentlemen,
you know,
JT, Graham, what do you think?
Well,
what are our perspectives? Something positive?
This is a fight.
Amen. Yes.
So we got to be in it.
Gird your loins and get ready.
As New Yorkers, you got to look at the entire nation. And remembering the volume of people that were following Donald Trump the last time. And listen to JD, that psycho. And keep in mind, he's only in his 30s. You have young people out there who are sick in their head, and they're going to be around for a long time. So it's not about just Donald Trump. It's the psyche of a younger generation that is following him. These people are, they want to have control, and they intend to be around for a long time. Look at the Supreme Court, how that has been damaged by the corruption. And going back to 2014, they did away with the voting rights, you know, as though Southern racists had found Jesus and were now going to be fair and equitable when it comes to voting rights. Well, that didn't work. It hasn't worked. The notion that a corporation is a person, allowing corporations to get into donating money. So now you've got billionaires buying the government. And that's these are the problems we have with the Supreme Court and with the Congress. So Kamala has a serious uphill fight here. But the whole country is not thinking the way we're thinking.
Right.
But there are enough people. There are people who are getting on board. This young lady that's the singer, what's her name? I don't know, that Trump is
Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, Graham.
Taylor Swift, yeah.
JT, you're the youth. Aren't you riled up and ready to fight and bring everybody up in the 30s and younger people below 50, people below 40? I mean, there's a Kamala, is that right? Kamala has riled up the youth and the women of the planet.
Right.
So there's no stopping us now. There's no stopping this. Trump is a fool, and he's being shown a fool every day.
His day is done.
Every day. What say ye, JT? You're the youth, youngest one here.
I hear Graham, and I definitely concur. I concur with all you gentlemen. I was fortunate enough to go to the DNC and to stand on the floor of the DNC and feel the energy of what that brought. And I know we all, I believe we all, serve a higher power. But in my faith, we believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
And I really feel, and I have unction, and I hope I'm not going too spiritual in nature, but I have an unction that we already have the victory, and I'm trying to make it super spiritual. But I already feel from being there, feeling the morale of the people, feeling the ancestry. And let me be clear, day of the convention, Reverend Sharpton and the sons of Jesse Jackson rolled out Jesse Jackson as a monumental figure. Gave him his just due. I can't believe, and I won't believe that God won't allow us somewhat to feel that level of power and that level of influence for us to come to the end of the game and then fail. So from my point of view and from the younger stature point of view, we already won. I think we have to go through the monotony of what it is, through this Trump's assassinations and all this other stuff.
Victory is ours.
But I think we now have to put our boots to the ground and really understand what we have to do once she gets in, because the fight has not yet begun. The fight will begin once she is in office. And we have to worry about January 6, 2025. We have to worry about getting to that date. We have to protect her enough on a spiritual level and on a natural level to make sure she's not only in office, but she's protected over 4 years.
Winston, they're now talking about how many black men are voting for Donald Trump.
Well, we got a lot of black fools.
Drumming up that nonsense. They're drumming up that nonsense to have people believe that young black men are really interested in voting for Donald Trump. And so you pick the people you want to interview. They put that message out there.
Wait a minute. Don't you believe we got a lot of stupid black people out here?
There are a lot of stupid black people, white people, Asians, Jews, everything.
You got a lot of stupid people. Period.
Yes.
Well, we're going to appeal to the people that have a spiritual nature about themselves, have a God-centered, because God didn't bring us this far to leave us now. This is just a test. This is a test of our faith. That's all it is.
Winston, what
and we are the survival of the fittest.
With what Graham said, there are videos out there like that, but what you know about a lot of those videos, those people are not likely voters. Like when they talk to these guys on a corner and some place and they're just talking, a lot of these guys are not likely voters though, you know. But Graham is talking about a real narrative that is out there in social media and other
Always
places.
been there. Always been there.
Being portrayed heavily.
We've had to look through the BS all our lives. Come on.
50 Cent said he was voting for Trump because he got RICO charges. That's the kind of stupidity. You got a guy in front of the microphone who will make a statement like that. He's voting for Trump because he got RICO charges.
Well, he's getting paid.
Shut up.
He's making money. What kills us the most is how we deal with each other.
Well, we have to lift up those who are moving in a positive direction and teaching our children to move in a positive direction. We have to lift ourselves up, and there's expressions about we lift our eyes to the mountains from whence comes our salvation. We have to be careful about where we look, because we can't be looking at dregs that'll drag us down. Certain entertainers, certain speakers are not worthy of our time. We have to look up to those who take us forward.
And it's always been like that. Why is it any different than it's always been? We've got our young kids now, and you know, I'm ashamed of them. You know, I go through all this struggle and fighting in the Marine Corps and all this other stuff, being gun-ho, and I walk around and see a man, nigga, nigga, and the music. I
work with the positive people.
I had to use the N-word because it's effective.
I got you.
You know, but to see us fall, we went from Muhammad Ali to Kamala, a black woman, Kamala
Harris,
Kamala, a black woman running for president. Now that's a blessing.
Amen.
Now if we don't come to attention, never mind what happened in the past, we're talking about today.
But don't say it like
we've got the opportunity.
Shirley Chisholm ran before.
But Shirley
she
Chisholm
did what was necessary. She
that
woke up
wasn't
the
a
Brooklyn
reality. This is a reality.
And she brought out
this is not a possibility. This is a reality. She's going to be the next president. There's no doubt in my mind, and it shouldn't be doubt in anybody else's mind, because that's the only sane thing that can happen.
But when we look
how could anything more?
We gotta mention. We can't just skip to her. We
can't let the crazies take over.
No, we gotta mention who paved the way for that, and that's Shirley Chisholm, and that happened in Ali's lifetime.
In our lifetime, yes, yes. She is in the tradition.
Everybody was a first. You mentioned, when I was in the Philippines, they thought I had a tail. And I was only black in the organization, so they looked at me.
4 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
So you had something to talk about. I want to give you a chance.
Mention, do you have the flyer there?
No.
Oh, I was gonna mention the street naming on 112 that I sent you earlier. But if we don't have the flyer,
what street naming when?
There's gonna be a street naming on September the 28th at 1 p.m.
Where?
It's going to be on 112th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
112.
And it's going to be from 1 to 3, and it's going to be after my mom.
Oh.
Yes.
Your mother's name?
Helene Numsa-Brath. Yes.
Oh.
Yes, she's going to have a street naming on 112th Street, September 28th from 1 to 3. I wish that they could see the flyer up there, but it's okay for the listeners to hear it. That's the most important thing.
You just mentioned the name Brath, and that commands a lot of respect in our community.
And one of our other heroes, we have to go, Sinke's father and Gil Noble were the best of friends. I mean, his father brought all the Ungawas to Gil Noble. That's Reverend Sharpton's term.
Ungawas.
I had the pleasure to meet and to speak with your father, your uncle.
And then we got
even
Professor
your mother
Jeffries.
several years ago.
Yeah. Well, this will be the first time.
A minute, and you got a minute, JT, if you want to say something. We got 3 left.
That's it. I think I enjoyed speaking with you gentlemen. I think I wasn't able to say that the last end with the conversation about Kamala, but I really think to the brothers gentlemen from Shirley Chisholm, I think this is our major opportunity once she is elected, because she will be elected. I'm with you, Mr. G. It's already done. But I think once that happens, I think we have to step up as a community and really dive into our youth and dive into who we are and really tap in to change the narrative of what we can become. I think her becoming another black president as well as a female black president, we have to come together and create programs like Huddle and create other programs, other mentorship programs that really identify to change the narrative of what we can, because the narrative to our young kids is absolutely, totally destroyed when it comes down to the hip hop community and what they see. We have to change that narrative. We have to do it holistically with our own bare hands and with our own mindset. We cannot count on entertainment. We can't count on Power and all these other shows, all this other stuff, because it's not doing its justice of what we really are. So I would say after she's elected, even her administration, even the Senate, even down to our local politicians and things of that nature, we have to really come together as the African American community and say, hey, enough is enough. We have to change the narrative of the first female black president. So we should take that empowerment and change the narrative of what we're becoming, and not becoming the new thing won't be become a rapper or an athlete, but becoming the president of the United States.
Amen.
From the mouth of babes. My man, JT.
You told me well.
That's my grandson, you know. Well, you know, it's what we talk about here all the time is God is love, and that's all we do. The God in me loves the God in you, and we will continue to push this spiritual nature of the black human. But there's no race, there's one race, the human race. It might take aliens come down to actually let us see that there's no difference. But you know, we go back to my Christ-like figure on the wall of Nan is Martin Luther King. I didn't play that in the beginning, like I should have. But that's the Christ-like figure, and we should judge people by the content of their character and not by the color of the skin, especially black people, because the Willie Lynch syndrome reigns supreme amongst blacks. So maybe we'll spend some time on that, because you can't judge people by the color of their skin. If you're black, you should know that. We have people fighting over the hue of a person. He's too light. He's too bright. Look at what we do to each other. Oh, you got a head because you light skinned. And it might have been true. But it wasn't my fault. That's it. All right. The God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more of the Gukchrist Experience. And we'll be back next week. God bless. Power to the people.
You know, Brother Leroy would have been talking about that second attempt, a quote-unquote attempt on Trump as a false flag if he